Hi and hello watch fans, and welcome to another edition of The Real Time Show with me, your friendly neighbourhood watchmaker, Rob Nuts, and today I am joined by a guest from the islands, David Brailsford. Dave, welcome to the airwaves. You represent Garrick Watch Company. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Rob. Nice to speak to you at last.
Yeah, I know, sorry, I had to delay our previous recording date for, I can't even remember what it was, it got in the way now, but I was not available to sit down and talk to you, and I have been looking forward to it for quite some time because Garrick is a brand obviously on my radar as someone who grew up and trained in Britain myself, and you're doing some remarkable things at some remarkable prices. But let's just start at the beginning. Can you tell us who you are, where you came from, and why you decided to get into watchmaking?
Yeah, so my name's David Brailsford. I originally started a business some time back called VIP Watchfinder, and I was sourcing, this was many, many years ago, I was sourcing watches originally for high-end clients, which got me into the world of independent watchmaking. I was sourcing from independents. I became a consultant for some time, and then many years back, I was approached by my partner, Simon Mickelmeyer, about opening a watch brand. At the time, I was working with Peter Roberts. I don't know whether you remember Peter Roberts, Rob. He did a watch called the Concentrate 20 pieces. Quite a legendary British watchmaker, trained Peter Speak, Marin, Stephen Forsey, my partner Simon, and a few others. I was working with him at the time, and at QP, that's when Simon approached me to start a watch brand. And knowing the many pitfalls, I kind of said no for about 6 months. But in the end, I just thought to myself, you know what, maybe we can do something a little bit different. This was about 10 years ago, and at the time, there was hardly any British watch brands at all. In fact, the only one really worth mentioning was Schofield at the time. We wanted to do something a little bit different and do it all in-house, so we put our own money into the project and buying loads of lathes and the machinery that we needed, and we started on the prototyping route for a year, then we launched the brand, and it's been uphill ever since, so to speak. But you know, it's been a long road. That's all I can say to get where we are at this present point.
Yeah, I can imagine. And you occupy a very different part of the market from Schofield because of the amount of emphasis you place on the mechanics. And that's really stunning to appreciate, to be honest, because we hear a lot about, shall we say, more marketing-oriented companies in the UK, like, say, Bremont, for example, and their attempts to bring watch manufacturing back to UK shores. But you've been doing it all this time. So why don't you tell us how that process came about and what kind of challenges you faced when you were setting up a workshop?
Well, my partner, Simon, already had an existing workshop, so it was fine along that front, but we expanded it over the years. So the way we operate is, I know you've visited a lot of the manufacturers, Rob. We're a little bit different than most independents. A lot of independents, they do things in different ways, and they bring parts in from elsewhere, do assembly work and whatnot. We've got quite an impressive setup, to be honest. And that's not blowing my own trumpet. We've got our own workshop. We have a plating room dedicated solely for doing all the plating on the dials and the movements. We have a linishing room for doing the polishing and the graining. We have a separate polishing room, a grip room. So we've got everything's, different rooms for doing different jobs. Because you can't all do it. Obviously, it's dirty work doing polishing and whatnot, so you can't have it in the same place as you building and assembling watches. We have positive air pressure in the workshop. And all this stuff's kind of been added over the years. And then we've invested in lathes, various other pieces of equipment, such as digital hairspring machines and whatnot. That's been the hardest part, is sourcing all the machines. A lot of the stuff we've got, like our Hauser jig borer, which is an incredible piece of machinery. It's a vertical lathe. You can make anything on it, main plates, bridges, anything, basically. We've had that for quite some time, but recently we've sourced a couple of Rose engines and a straight line engine, which proved the hardest thing we were looking for years and years and years and years. So the biggest challenge has been doing the dials in-house. We've always done dials in-house, but we've never been able to do engine turning until the last year or two. In fact, the last couple of years. That's been the biggest challenge, sourcing the Rose engines, because they are basically like hen's teeth. As rare as hen's teeth. But the other thing is watchmakers. So we had a really good watchmaker called Craig Baird, who was a phenomenal watchmaker, could do all the engineering and whatnot. He was with us for many years, and then he left us a couple of years back. And so our hardest challenge in recent times has been sourcing watchmakers with the relevant skill sets, and it's difficult in the UK because everybody just goes into kind of service centres. They don't learn how to operate the lathes and whatnot, and that's been our biggest challenge. In fact, it's been an absolute nightmare over the last couple of years. But I mean, we're getting there. Our watchmakers are veterans. Are kind of, my partner Simon's a 30-year veteran. My main watchmaker and manager, Stuart, was a 30-year clockmaker, believe it or not, and he transitioned into watchmaking. And we've got Neil, who worked at Rolex for many years. So, we've got a good team. We've lost staff members over the last couple of years, but, talking of challenges, it's the fact over the years that there was no watchmaking industry as such. So we've had to learn everything from scratch over the years. Everything, plating. Not many watchmans do plating in-house. That's been an absolute nightmare for us getting that right. Various things, Rob, to be honest.
You seem to have learned and mastered quite a lot of skills for such a relatively young brand. I mean, I'm looking at the dial finishes available, and yeah, you've got the Guilloche options now with the Rose engine machines, which are, like you say, incredibly rare themselves, and so a wonderful thing to be able to offer. But could you tell us a little bit more about some of the other dial finishes that our listeners will be able to see on the Garrick website? Explain what they are, what options you have, and how you actually bring them to life.
Yeah, because we don't kind of do dials externally, so we are limited. So we can't offer everything that other brands can offer, obviously, because a lot of people are bringing dials in from manufacturers. So we stick to what we do best. And what we do best is frosted dials, hammered textures, or engine turn. And when we say engine turn, obviously we mean straight line engine as well, so straight patterns. We've mastered the Rose engine, and we do quite a lot of turning. But frosted dials are very popular. We also frost dial movements. We do that various ways. You can hand frost it, which you do with a grit paste or a fine grit paste on a piece of glass, and you rub the metal around and around and around, and it creates a really, really fine frosted area. Or we do bead blasting. There's various types of things you can put in the bead blaster to create a finish, but bead blasting's the main one. So it's mainly frosted and engine turn dials that we specialise in, and also we've got certain things like on the S2 where we do the applied skeletonized chapter rings and whatnot. Again, all done in-house. So it's stuff that we've learned over the years and perfected over a period of time.
Now, the S2 is really something to talk about, because that's a
cracking watch.
It is a special piece to look at. It retails, for anybody that is interested, around 20,000, including VAT.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty serious timepiece. Do you want to describe it to our listeners? Tell us what it's all about.
Yeah, the S2 was our first in-house caliber. We say in-house, and we use that term lightly. Obviously, we don't make every part in-house, but it is a true in-house caliber. It's got a free sprung balance on the front of the movement, and the reason we did that, I mean, when we did it, it was a bit worried, to be honest, whether everyone would like that aesthetic. But the thing is, we wanted to do something that hardly anybody else was doing. And people were doing tourbillons at the time. There's not many brands, Rob, that have got the balance wheels on the front, and it's a large balance wheel, as you can see.
No, you're in quite esteemed company there with the Trinity Balance, you say it's called, and I can think of MB&F and you. That's about it.
Yeah, and Langer do one, and there's a couple of others, but really there's not many, especially a balance rim that size. That's the thing. You think the thing is, Rob, it's a cutthroat market, and there's a lot of damn good independent brands. I'm a massive fan of independent brands. I run the Watchmakers Club. We put events on, and brands travel from all over the place to join these events. So, it's a thing I'm really into. But, the problem is it's also a small market as such. And all these collectors that buy into independent brands, they've all got, if somebody buys a Garrick watch, you can guarantee they've got 5 or 6 watches from our competitors. So we have to do something. We have to think ahead and do something that we know our competitors can't do. And that's why when we went to the movement, we went and put the balance wheel on the front rather than on the back of the watch. Just meant that we're doing something totally unique. And at the time we did it, we were And bear in mind, the S2's probably, it's probably 6 years old now. When we launched it, we were the only brand as well doing that heat blued skeletonized chaptering on the dial. There's a few brands doing it now, but at the time we were the only one. But it was about giving that watch a handmade aesthetic. We didn't want to do pad printing on the dial. We didn't want to do anything other. So to do the Roman numerals, I say we skeletonized the chaptering with a laser. And it's screwed on from underneath the dial. The screws come through in certain positions. And then we polished the ends of the screws so you actually don't see them sticking through onto the skeletonized chaptering. I say it's been done a few times since, but at the time we were the only people doing it. We make our hands in-house as well. That's all done using traditional methods, heat blued. So again, like I say, with the S2, the aesthetic is engine turned or frosted dial, applied heat blued chaptering and heat blued anchor hands. The anchor hands aren't everybody's cup of tea, but bear in mind we do various others like lancing, and anchors become our kind of DNA of the watch. You can tell a Garrick watch on the wrist from a mile away by the anchor hands.
I mean, you kind of read my mind there. That's bizarre. I was about to ask, and I have many questions because obviously, like, this is a fascinating watch, but it has an even more fascinating follow-up, in my opinion, in the S3. But we'll get to that in a moment. But the hands, where did it come from? Where did this idea come from?
Yeah, what it was, I'm into a lot of things, especially drinking, and but I like whiskies, I like my real ales. But anyway, one of my hobbies is maritime. I collect maritime stuff. I've got a lot of replicas of ships like the Victory and whatnot, handmade replicas that are identical, even down to the rigging. I've got a ship's figurehead, believe it or not, in my lounge. A lot of stuff like that.
Wow.
Yeah, and because I'm into maritime things, we were a long time back. We launched an entry-level watch called the Norfolk. Anyway, you can remember it. It had a big, and it was based on aesthetics from maritime instruments. So it had a big white enamel dial, and the nameplate was rather large on it. And the reason it was larger was it was based on kind of instruments in boiler rooms on ships, so like the pressure gauges and whatnot, where they had the large maker's name on the plate on the dial, and that's where that came about. And because we wanted to give it a bit of a maritime aesthetic, we went for the anchor hands. That's where it stemmed from, and it became a part of our DNA. So it's we basically have them to every single watch now, and some people like them, some people don't. Rob, it's one of those things.
I must admit that I'm a convert. I wasn't a fan, but I am a fan now. And
you see, the reason I like them, I like where the hands cross over, the anchors cross at a certain.
Yeah.
I just think when you've got a larger dial and you've got a bit of an empty dial, I think the tails on the anchors work. It fills the dial a little bit more, and that's what I go for, kind of thing.
I mean, it's certainly identifiable, it's recognizable, and it's memorable. And I mean, it's of course not going to be to everyone's taste, but like you say, you do have options. And in fact, talking of options, you have a lot of options, right? I mean, you do a lot of bespoke work. Can you tell us what a customer hoping to have their own bespoke Garrick made can look forward to?
Well, it's crazy, to be honest. We never, ever do two watches the same, ever. So every time somebody orders a watch on the website, or most clients contact us direct, they pick and choose. So you've got to bear in mind, even if two people order frosted dial each, well, one will have a movement colour different from the last. The dial will be a different colour. The hands will be different. So there's a choice of lancing, which are the sword-shaped hands, polished steel or heat blued or even painted. Same with the anchor hands, heat blued or polished steel. Dial combinations, any colour, basically. Rhodium and pink gold are popular. If it's if it's a frosted dial, they can have an engine turn pattern in the sub-second area. It can be a straight cut like a hobnail or something, or it can be a turned pattern like a barley twist. Same with the engine turned patterns. There's so many variants. Same with the movement. Basically, the sky's the limit. You can have pink gold, yellow gold, rhodium, silver, black, even. We've been experimenting with black plating recently, which is extremely difficult, I've got to point out. Basically, no two watches ever the same, ever.
That is amazing. I'm looking through the options and my mind is running away with itself, as it often does, and I'm getting excited because
I'm sure you're going to purchase one, Rob, any second, actually.
Well, any second. I'll be straight up with you. I'm not going to purchase one any second, but I certainly think I will purchase one. But it's going to take me more than a second to figure out what I want. I mean,
well, I was talking to a client last night, Rob. Sorry to interrupt, and this client I've been talking to in America for literally 6 weeks, and it's the same with a lot of clients. They can never make up the mind because it's just it becomes a little bit confusing because there's so many options to choose from. And the other problem we have, we put really nice images out on Instagram. We have a photographer who comes into the workshop, and funnily enough, she used to work for us in reception. She's trained photographer now. She comes in and takes all the pictures, and every time we put a new image out on Instagram, you guarantee a client contacts and said, "Oh, is my watch being built yet?" And we'll go, "No, it's not been started yet." "Oh, can I change it to this? I've just seen the image." So it changes non-stop with clients. We right up until the day of the assembly, really.
I can really imagine that. And I was going to ask, how much of a problem does your flexibility and willingness to create bespoke one-off pieces for basically every customer cause when it comes to building an identifiable brand image long term? Is that a problem, or is that your thing now?
Yeah, it's a huge problem. It guarantees someone will make an order, and some people end up changing it 10, 15 times up until the build. Honestly, it is a major problem, but we offer the service and we can't go back on it. Not only that, we do like building bespoke watches. It's custom and stuff we build, and we love. You bear in mind, Rob, if we were putting the same old images out on Instagram, which is our main channel, all the time, people would lose interest in the brand pretty fast. But because we've always got something new, that's why people follow us, and we sell a lot of watches via Instagram and social media because of the images. It's an image-driven thing, and it works for us. But it is a major problem, and but we have to sometimes say to clients and be brutally honest with them, look, you're going to create a Franken watch. If you keep, you have to look at it this way. When somebody falls in love with a watch, that's when they press the button and they say, oh, this is the one I like. The more you change, the more you're going to fall out of love with it. And that's what I kind of have to point out to some clients, and they go, yeah, I see your point. I'll rein it in a little bit. Honestly, it's a nightmare for people being able to make up minds and then press the button. That's the problem, because they just see so many different variations. It's crazy.
I think I understand where you're coming from, and I think I would probably follow your advice, choose one that already existed, and if I had anything changed on it, it would be something subtle like an engraving on the case back, or I don't know what else would be possible, or slightly different hands, or I don't know, whatever. But I think I know what you mean.
Yeah, we do a lot. Well, we do engraved movements. There's various things, textured movements, different colours. We put a lot on the S4, for instance. You've got the engraved barrel and crown wheel plate, which sits over the two gears, and we do a lot of things with that. We've done some. We did a special edition for the Saudi collectors group where we had Arabic writing on there. We do dates of birth and all sorts of stuff. I mean, honestly, really, when we say the sky's the limit, the sky's the limit. Oh, and another one we do is with cases. So we have two different finishes on the cases. We normally do a fully polished case, or we do a case with our standard case, which is grained on the edges, again, done in-house, frosted in between the lugs and polished on the top of the case. That's the one that we normally stick with. But we do a lot of frosted cases as well. So it's like a gunmetal finish, and that's done in the bead blasting room. So in fact, we've just literally finished one last week for a client. So again, like I say, I keep harping on about it. The sky is literally the limit. Clients can choose whatever they want. We're not, and it's the same, like I say, with the cases, they can choose the finish on the case.
That is an interesting relationship. I was actually talking to Dr. Rebecca Struthers last week about her new book that's coming out very shortly. And, well, in fact, I think it'll probably be out by the time that this podcast airs. So if you've not seen that, Hands of Time, go and check it out. You can get it from all reputable book retailers. She was speaking in that book about the importance in the old days of a client, of the watchmaker-patron relationship. So you would have people that wanted to be involved in the process of design all the way through when they were having their watch made. And that's something that's kind of lost these days, and certainly lost at a price point like this. I mean, your watches start around 5,000 excluding VAT, right? Which is...
I know, it's crazy. Yeah, crazy. Yeah.
It is crazy. How do you do it? I guess you're a masochist, right?
Well, I am. That's another story. No, we...
We'll save it for the Blue podcast later, shall we?
Well, back to a couple of things. So about the client relationship, it's always been the same with us. We take it very, very, very seriously. And any one of our clients will tell you, and there's quite a few scattered all over the world, most of them become good friends, and we even chat after they've purchased the watches. All the way through the build, we chat on WhatsApp. Me and you have got this thing, Rob, about WhatsApp desktop, and I've got to say it's absolutely fantastic for sharing stuff with clients.
We do love it. We're in the minority, but we adore it, right? We think it's the best thing ever.
It's fantastic. And every time I'm speaking to a client, be it via email, be it over the phone or on chat via the website, I always say, look, let's switch to WhatsApp. And I've got it up on my laptop on my screen all the time. And I just share images from folders. So, we've got that many images. We've got folders and folders. Every client we've ever built a watch for, we've got images of their watch builds and videos. And so we've got so much to share, and we do it all via WhatsApp. And we have a very personal relationship with the clients. We chat all night. We chat in the daytimes. That a lot of them, like I say, become very good friends. And, and that's the thing. I don't pass the client on to anybody else. The client deals with me from start to finish. So I deal with every email, every phone call. I won't let anybody else, even the girls in reception, are allowed to answer the phones to sales side. And I deal with the client all the way up to the finish. And even after that, we check in, make sure everything's okay. If there's an issue with the watch, and believe me, you do get issues. Any brand that says they don't is lying, basically. Again, the client deals with me from start to finish. I deal with everything, and that's what people like. And like I say, we've got clients that bought watches, honestly, Rob, 8-9 years ago, and they're still friends to this day. And that's the thing. It's a thing we take very, very seriously. But back to the price point, it's our philosophy is high end affordable, and it always has been. So our profit margins are extremely low. If you imagine the level of work we're doing in house, and like you're commenting on the price, it's absolutely crazy. But it's important for us to get watches on wrists, and it's important for us to have a relatively entry level. I use that term lightly. Some people may say it isn't entry level at that price point, but for us, it's entry level for the level of craftsmanship involved. When you bear in mind, a customer orders a watch from, they're choosing everything from start to finish, or even making the hands. Most brands will tell you that at that price bracket, they're bringing hands in, and rightly so. But we make the hands in house. Even the collets that sit in the centre of the hands, we make on a miniature watchmaker's lathe, and every one of them is done for every individual client. It's extremely difficult to do it. And yeah, you're right. I am a masochist, but we're very uneasy when we put prices up. And somebody commented, funny enough, I was talking to an Asian client like yesterday, who said to me, well, even on a Sunday, Rob, I'm doing this, and he couldn't believe that we just launched the S6 and we kept the price as low as the S4. But it was important for us. We just don't feel comfortable. It's mad, really. I'm a businessman. We need to make money. We need to pay overheads, but pricing is our number one priority, is keeping it as low as we possibly can. And, most retailers want 40% margins and whatnot. We don't have that in a watch shop at all. We can't sell watches at all, because something we can't do.
Well, I'm not surprised, because looking at this, and we mentioned a couple of other British watchmakers like Schofield and Bremont, and of course there's Anne O'Dane up in Glasgow. But when it comes to this kind of in-house movement, modifications and manufacturing components and whatnot, there's really only you and then I guess Roger Smith, like in the British landscape, right?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, exactly. I mean, obviously Struthers are doing some fantastic work, of course, but we're doing like I say, we're doing our engine turning in house, we're making our dials from start to finish. There's a lot of stuff we're doing in house. Some stuff we can't do in house. Don't get me wrong, you can't at this price point, but all the prototyping and whatnot, we take months and months and months when we're doing anything like that. And it's quite an important, I mean, Rob, I've got to be honest, on numerous occasions that me and my partner have had the discussion, do we do it externally? It's not viable to do it this way, but it's something we don't feel comfortable with. We've made our own bed, so to speak, and we've got to lie in it. And that's why clients come to us. Like I say, we don't do every single thing in-house. We can't possibly do it at that price point, but we're doing enough and enough to interest clients. And it's a learning curve for us. The more we can do going forward, the better it is for us, and we'll feel more comfortable. But like I say, we're making bridges in-house, we're making hands in-house, we're making dials in-house. That's the way it is. And it's the way it's always going to be. We don't have any plans to change at this moment in time. And I've got to say, Rob, a lot of this thing that we do, and especially learning and whatnot, we've got a very good friend in the background who helps us out no end, and that's a good friend of mine called Andreas Strehler. And I always like to give him credit. He's always there on the end of the phone. He's a legendary watchmaker. And whenever we've got issues, I mean, my partner Simon is a fantastic watchmaker. He knows his stuff. But if ever we get stuck and we've got problems, Andreas is always there on the end of the phone to help. And it's good to have contacts like that, really.
Well, it makes all the difference, doesn't it? I mean, it is a relationship industry, and
Yeah.
having someone in your corner that has that kind of knowledge and experience helping push things forward is just invaluable. So tell me this, with all of this, that you're taking on all of these burdens of bespoke watchmaking and, talking to the clients on Sundays and, by the sounds of it, never sleeping. How many watches are you actually able to produce in a year?
Well, you believe it or not, because it's obviously rolling. So we've got a waiting list every year, and it just rolls on and on and on and on. We never produce more than 70 pieces per year. That's the maximum we can build. We can't do any more than 70, but it's rolling on and on and on. So, some waiting lists, like on S2s and whatnot, are 2 years. Some are 6 months, and some are a year. It just rolls on and on. We do a lot of collections. So back to the retailer thing, the only way we can sell through retailers is if they commission a collection, and we have a few that do commission collections, like 10 or 20 pieces. And, that's kind of the way we work it with that. And it gives everybody the margins involved, because they'll, do something special. It means they can up the price a touch, and we're working with it. But no, regardless of anything, Rob, it's 70 pieces. And the crazy situation is that we carry no stock at all, zero. We're never, ever in a position to build watches for ourselves, believe it or not. And I'm not kidding. The first time I ever owned a Garrick watch was about a year ago. We were never in a position to build one.
Oh, what did you go for? What did you choose after all this time?
I chose, I chose two, actually. I chose an S2 with a white dial, because I love the S2. It's a cracking watch. And then I've got one on my wrist at the moment, which is a copper dial S4 with heat blued hands, which I absolutely love. But it's a crazy situation. And whenever we have been in a position, and say we've managed to build a couple of pieces or something to have as demo pieces, guarantee if somebody walks in and goes, "Oh, it's a wedding, I'm absolutely desperate. Any chance you can sell me something in the next couple of months?" And we end up selling them again. So it's what actually, Rob, it's one of the reasons we can never do exhibitions or shows, because we've never really got anything to show. I know it's a crazy situation. And if we have to take clients' watches. We literally have to speak to the client first, say, "Is there any chance we can take your watch to an exhibition?"
Well, that is crazy. That is absolutely crazy.
It's crazy. Madness, really, when you think about it. But some people say it's a good position to be in, but it isn't in reality, because if we have a lot of clients who visit the workshop and we do tours and whatnot, and all we've ever got to show is clients' watches, either finished and on test or partially built. But there's always a lot to see. I mean, it matters not, but it's just that we don't have any stock at all, nothing. Crazy.
That is an unreal situation. I mean, it's good, like some people say, to be in such demand that you're not able to get out ahead of that demand and create any surplus stock for whatever other purpose. But man, it's tough, I guess, because people would be scratching their heads. Certainly, journalists, for example, or fairgoers, hoping to see the watches in their hands more frequently. Like, well, where are these pieces?
Well, another thing, back to this thing about fairs, Rob, and because it's nice to know what goes on behind the scenes with watch brands, and I'm always quite honest about stuff. One of our biggest problems over the years, when we were visiting fairs and whatnot, was the fact we was always showing prototypes, and they were never quite finished, and that was a major issue for us, to be honest. You really, when you're attending stuff and you meet in journalists, you want to show finished watches, and that was one of our biggest issues. Every time we ever met journalists, be it at Basel World, wherever it might be, we always had prototypes, and that was a major problem for us over the years, really.
So do you think that there will be a time in the future that you're able to sort of put a pause on customer production and actually create that collection that you can take and show people? Or do you think you're just going to be rolling and rolling and rolling and serving the customers for as long as it takes for you to clear?
I don't know. I get very, very stressed about delivery times. And that's the problem, because I'm dealing with clients myself and I'm not passing them on to anybody. I get quite stressed if it's hard to put a delivery time on a watch, always, even, you can estimate always, but then you've got testing and whatnot, and we like to thoroughly test absolutely everything for weeks, believe it or not, and, and adjust. And we're really thorough on timings as well. We like to get everything in under +5, +3 if possible. So there's a lot of adjustments to make over a period of time, because simply movements like on the S4, which is a modified unit test, they're not meant to do anything like that. +8 to +11 is where they normally sit. So we play around with what. So, quite a lot to get the timings correct. And that's when things start to drag out. And then we've got clients, normally they're quite understanding, but when you've got them on your back and they say, oh, you said delivery date at such and such, and you were now 2 to 3 weeks late. 99% of the clients are fine, but some aren't. I take it very personally, and I get quite stressed with it. And this is the point, because I just don't want to put clients off. I don't want to keep clients waiting. I don't think we're ever going to be in a position, frankly, unless we can take on extra watchmakers. But it's finding good enough watchmakers, and we don't have the time to train people. That's another thing. We're just flat out, and my watchmakers are stressed all the time. It's a strange situation to be in.
It's a funny one.
There's so much to do. We find prototyping difficult, Rob. We've got various launches planned this year. We've just done the S6. We've got a deadbeat seconds S2 coming out at the end of the year. Crazy situation with a deadbeat. We announced it on WhatsApp a year ago and completely sold out before we'd even built the watch.
Oh, how inconvenient.
Yeah, I know. But then again, we're under pressure to prototype it and deliver it. This is the problem. We're always under pressure, Rob. It's not a good thing. And as you'll know, watchmakers don't work well under pressure. It's not they need to have a good mindset and be focused. And pressure's not good for anybody.
It is a situation that sounds like, commercially at least, it would be sustainable because the demand is there, and obviously it's very exclusive, and you take a very personal approach to the design and creation of the watch, leading the customer through the design process as you do. But yeah, it's a tough one because that kind of stress is not sustainable. And certainly if you wanted to, I don't know, if you don't need to grow, but if you wanted to grow, then obviously having some time for you to develop things in-house and then to create press samples and a more solid core.
Rob. That's a really good point. Actually, the thing is, we do want to grow, but how do we grow? We're kind of stuck in a rut. We're busy. Our order books are always full. We've only got so many watchmakers, 3 in total, counting my partner, and we don't have the time to do a lot of prototyping like we used to do. We can only build 70 watches per year because of the handmade nature of the watches. A lot of finishing to do, plating and polishing and all that stuff that's involved on hands and cases and everything that normal people take for granted and just think, oh, you're just putting something in a case. It doesn't work like that. There's a lot of work to do. And how do we grow? How do we double up double production unless we get more watchmakers on board? Then you've got the situation where our profits are low. And can we afford to take on more watchmakers? Have we got the time to train more watchmakers? It's a really, really difficult situation for us. And bar getting investors on board, I don't know what we're going to do. We're in a good position as a brand, and don't get me wrong, a lot of independents are doing extremely well at the moment. But how do we grow? It's a damn good question. And I have no idea.
Well, I mean, like you say, a lot of independents are doing well, and a lot would like to be doing as well as you are at the moment with all of that interest and that long, full order book. But of course, as we're identifying quite clearly here, it does raise its own problems, its own challenges. And yeah, I suppose if you want to grow and if you want to create more space in the price for you to earn more money, to reinvest in new developments, then you need to increase the numbers of watches that you're producing. But yeah, what comes first?
And that's the point, Rob. Like we don't have backers or anything, and it's all our own funds in this business. It always has been. Don't get me wrong, we've had offers time and time again from investors and people even wanting to buy the business, believe it or not.
Oh, really?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've got 2 offers on the table at the moment, one from Asia and one from Saudi, and they kind of like what we're doing, and we've built a decent niche brand, but we always shy away from backers. In reality, it'd be a good thing. After all, Rob, that's what shares are for in businesses. You take shareholders on board, and back to Bremont's, exactly what Bremont's have done. But the thing is, we don't like pressure, and we've discussed this many times, me and my partner, and we've thought, do we go for investors? Do we not go for investors? But it's just the fact is of having them breathing down your neck. For us, it's not a good thing. So again, it's like a vicious circle, and that's the problem. Honestly, it's a crazy situation for us, and like I say, a lot of independents, they work it so that they're bringing things in from different places. They have quite small workshops, and we've got quite a large setup, and our overheads are quite big for such a small brand. like I say, we've not just got a single workshop. We've got extra things like polishing room, plating rooms, finishing rooms, and it's all extra costs. It's all extra electricity. It's extra machinery. You've got to have somebody doing the polishing while a watchmaker's sat there focusing what he's doing. And it's quite a big setup for a small brand. And that's the point. How do we increase profits?
So what are you going to do in the future? I mean, realistically speaking, how long will you let yourself go on like this with this kind of stress and this kind of pressure on yourself?
I don't know. I mean, people say it's stressful, and honestly, it does get a little bit stressful, but I do de-stress at weekends. I turn off completely. I talk to clients when I'm, on my laptop and whatnot, but, I like a pint, Rob. I go out and I chill out and I have a drink. I like my whiskies and stuff. And so I do turn off from it all. But the point is the team's always under pressure, and that's the problem. Waiting lists are a nightmare for any brand, as any independent brand will tell you, because, nobody likes delivering watches late. And it can turn customers off ordering. So, a lot of clients, they want watches straight away. They want watches in a few weeks. The market's changed now. And obviously because of, buying Rolexes and whatnot on the waiting lists on them, a lot of newer clients now understand that it's a fact and it's a fact of life. Now, if you want a watch, you're going to have to wait for it. But, there are clients that don't want to wait a year, don't want to wait 2 years. And that's the problem. I don't know, Rob, where do we go? I have no idea. We're in a good position and we're going to plod along forever and a day, but it's a difficult one. We've grown to a point where we can't really grow anymore without the investment, and we don't really want to take. I've got to be honest. A few weeks ago, I was talking to a friend of mine, Pietro, and I did say, we were genuinely thinking about taking investors on board, but I'm not sure it's a good thing for us. People like it because we're totally independent. I'm not sure whether it's positive or a negative. I don't know, Rob. I don't know what your opinion is.
Well, my opinion is that you're absolutely right, and you should keep it under your direct control for as long as possible. Absolutely. But I also think that it is important that you figure out a plan, at least a roadmap that gives some clear timings of when you want to change the way you are engaging with the business so that it can grow in the future. I think that's key. I would not take investment if you can help. I think that gives you a huge amount of power. But that power, of course, has resulted in this incredible flexibility for the clients, which has resulted in this enormous waiting list, which, although sounds great and has its benefits, as we know, like the worst thing about it from a product perspective almost is that if you have a client waiting for 2 years and you have all of this awesome stuff coming out all the time and every single watch basically a new piece that could effectively turn their head, they'll not only change their mind of what they want throughout the period that they're waiting for the watch that they've already ordered, but had they had the watch that they ordered on day one, they likely would have bought another one at the end of the 2 years because there's so many things that have happened since. So, you actually, nobody thinks about this, right? Okay, this is I was talking to Chapek about this the other day because they have a massive, massive, massive backlog of orders now, and they've closed orders so they can try. I mean, it sounds great. Again, it looks like a massive success story, and it is a massive success story, but it brings with it its new challenges. And Xavier was saying that the issue is they have to keep releasing novelties to stay relevant, to stay in the news, to continue to grow and offer diversity.
Well, funnily enough, I know Xavier very well from Chapek, and he's a good friend of mine. And, we've been together over the years.
I tell you what, you two should definitely grab a few pints together and just drown your sorrows while talking about this.
Well, we have.
This is, I bet you have, yeah. But I mean, this is a problem he's facing now where like people are seeing the novelties and they're on the waiting list and they've been waiting ages, and then they go, oh, you know what, I'll change my order to this new one. And that's totally their right. If they haven't received the watch they've ordered, fine.
I mean, I'm a massive fan. There's a lot of independent bands I'm a massive fan of. In fact, I like them all. Every brand, you've got to bear in mind, Rob, it takes some guts to start a watch brand. Not all of them make it. Some do, some don't. I admire anybody that's done it, frankly, because it was a long road for us, and it really was before we kind of hit it big. It's the same with Chapek. I like the stuff they're doing. It's absolutely crazy, phenomenal. The new movement, the dials are incredible, but they're in the same position. They've taken on investors and they've grown and grown and grown and grown. But the point is, no matter how big that company grows and how hard Xavier works, they still have a massive backlog. So it works for some brands, it doesn't work for others. The thing is with us, Rob, which a lot of people don't understand, we slogged away in the background for years, mate, really prototyping. And honing our skills and trying to get things right. And it was only really about it was about 3-4 years ago when things really started to take off for us. Otherwise we were just chipping away and chipping away and chipping away. It's because we were just insisted on doing the in-house thing, and that's it has its positives and negatives. And the negatives were that it was a learning curve for us, a long, long, long road, and we made a hell of a lot of this. Don't get me wrong, Rob, stacks of mistakes over the years with things, and that's the point. But, we're back to this investor thing and everything else. Where do we go? It's a really difficult thing for us, and we want to carry on doing as much in-house as we possibly can. But like I say, it's the profit margins that are extremely low. It's a difficult situation, and I don't see any easy way around it at the moment. To be honest, we've grown to a point where we can't really grow anymore at the moment. But the other biggest problem, like I say, and I keep going over the same things, is watchmakers. It's just finding watchmakers, and even finding someone with the relevant skill sets, it's difficult because, a lot of watchmakers in the UK, they're all trained on lathes and whatnot, and they go straight into service centre. I mean, there's some really good up-and-comers at the moment I'm talking to that are fantastic and doing some cracking work. Even for those, buying the machinery is difficult. It's expensive and it's hard to find. And there hasn't been a watchmaking industry in the UK for God knows how long. As you know, Struthers have been chipping away and doing their thing, and there's really only Roger Smith doing the in-house thing. It's a difficult one, and it's how other people perceive you as a brand as well. British brands are big right now, but they weren't for a long time, and we were kind of British brands are always looked on as quirky little brands in the past, and then that's changed now because the thing I look at it is the good thing about independence in general, and the good thing about British watch brands is that we all do our own thing. We don't follow trends, and that's the point. That's what kind of separates us from everybody else, and that's why we're always going to have clients, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think you will for sure, and I think there's a nice amount of British brands now. There's not too many. The market isn't oversaturated, and the whole Cool Britannia thing is still alive and kicking in the watchmaking industry.
Well, it matters. The British thing does matter. A lot of our Asian clients, they buy the watches because they're British, and that's the point. As British as...
So would I.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, if you were Swiss...
It's nice to know. I've always had this thing, and I've been chipping away about the watchmaking side, reviving watchmaking. It's been my thing for years and years and years, and I've always banged on about it. I just think it's there's a lot of skills been lost over the years in the UK, and clearly they need to be revised, and that's kind of what we're trying to do. I mean, Rob, the things you take for granted in watch brands like plating is really, really difficult, believe it or not. There's a reason most brands don't do plating in-house of movement parts and dials. You think it's simple as dipping something into a plating solution, but it isn't at all. You get so many, especially Rhodian plates, difficult to do, and you get the failure rates incredibly high. There's a technique for doing everything, and it's a learning curve, and things like that take a long, long time to perfect, believe me, because, you get plating tarnishing and all that kind of stuff. And we were experimenting for ages. We wanted to do black plating. Anyone will tell you, Rob, it's a nightmare. Black plating is an absolute nightmare. And we were experimenting for months and months before we finally managed to perfect it, which we did on the S6 movement and the S6 dial. But even then, the first time we did it, it had a bluey tint. So we called it, I can't remember what we called the colour. We called it night blue or something.
Nice.
Because it was kind of half black and half blue. Little things like that take time, and we're focused on time and time and time again and again. That stops us again from building in-house watches and stuff, prototyping and all the things we do in the background. It's, it's never ending, basically.
Talking of those platings and the incredible colours you're able to get on the dial, could you talk us through like what is possible and what isn't, and how do you get a finish like that green, for example?
Well, actually, we don't. So being brutally honest with you, so that all we can do in house, we do rhodium plate. So we do rhodium, silver, yellow and pink, gold and black. Well, any of the other colours we have to send externally. It's a galvanic treatment. We can't do it in house. It's actually a really, really difficult process to do, and there's vacuums used and all sorts of things to do it. You can use a coloured lacquer, But the difference between a lacquer and a galvanic treatment is a galvanic treatment's got a bit of a sparkle to it, and it's much better.
Yeah.
You know, and the company we use, you know, I'll be brutally honest about that. I've got nothing to hide. The company we use for galvanic treatments is Conwell, which is Carrie Vortolanin's dial and plating company.
Oh, wow. Oh, well, that's a cool collaboration.
Well, they do it for a lot of brands. They do it for a lot of independent brands, and they're the best at what they do. So so like I say, we do pink, gold, rhodium, black, and silver in house. Always, this is on the movements and on the dials. Any specific colours we send to Conwell. We make the dials, we turn the dials, we send them to Conwell, and they send them us back with the colours on.
So my favourite watch, I think, in the whole Garrick collection, I've decided now, my favourite, and typically it's not one of the entry level pieces because I've got expensive taste, it would seem, is the S5.
Oh, yes. The S5, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the S5 is my favourite, full stop, yeah.
S5 is slick and elegant, it's beautiful, so it's not got the balance on the dial, it's 3 hands, all centrally mounted, but it's got brilliant engine turning finishing. I love this, I don't know what you'd call it, rich burgundy, claret, maroon dial that is absolutely stunning. That's, I guess, one of the ones that's been plated.
Oh, yeah, the one you're looking at, probably, yeah, we call it plum. Yeah, yeah, it is.
Oh, perfect. That's much better. Yeah, plum.
Yeah, it's like a burgundy colour, yeah, but again, the sky's the limit. We've done ice blue, white, blacks, rhodium, pink gold's been a really, really popular one. It's, I've always been inspired by obviously the work that Roger Smith does. I like Breguet type dials. I love anything Daniels did. I just think it's stunning. And so we're always inspired by that type of thing. And you know, that's what inspired us with the S5 again, the same as it did with the S4. It said those Breguet type dials. And the way that dial's constructed, it looks quite simple, but there's various aspects to the way it's made. You've got a dial blank that you make first, then you have to frost and finish that dial. You rivet the seat on the dial seat and then finish it on top to hide that. You can frost it or turn it and plate it, and then the chapter ring is then applied separately. And there's 3 holes. You see the round markers around the chapter ring, the minute marker.
Yeah.
The marker at 12, 8, and 4 is where the actual ends of the screws come through. So we screw that chapter ring on from underneath the dial, and then we literally all those Roman numerals and the markers are laser engraved, believe it or not, or you can chemically etch it. Laser engraved's the best method, and then every one of those is infilled with ink by hand. So we use a syringe and we infill it. And then we do exactly the same on the screw heads. We infill, and then what we do, we put it onto a lathe and we do what you call spin it, which is circular graining it. And then that literally, the circular graining takes the excess ink off, and then it gives us the chaptering, the grain defect at the same time. So quite a long-winded process to do the dial from start to finish.
Beautiful, though, beautiful. I was wondering where those hidden screws were underneath. As you were talking, I've zoomed into this and I was looking around if I could see any discernible difference between any of the hour markers, because I figured they must be poking out in one of those dots. But no, it's a beautiful, beautiful job. So
yeah, you have to we literally infill it with a syringe. It's crazy, absolutely crazy.
Amazing.
We don't do any pad printing at all on any of the watches. So it's the dial on the S6 and the dial on the S5, the dial on the S4, again, the chapter rings are all infilled by hand. That's the level of workmanship involved in building each one of those watches, whether it's a $5,000 price point or a $20,000 price point. It's the same, no difference.
Amazing. And I have to say, the 39mm case sounds right up my street in terms of wearability and that movement.
Obviously, as you know, most of our watches are 42 minutes because the movement dictates the size. And, on the S4 and the S6, we use a modified ETA, and it's a 16-line movement, so we can only really fit in a 42mm case. Although the cases are smaller to wear on the wrist, the way they're designed, then we had to do a 39mm watch. We had to, especially for our Asian clients, and we all prefer the smaller sizes, and that's why that came about. To be honest, it was important.
Who makes the cases? Do you have them made in the UK?
The cases are all made in the UK, at a local engineering company, and they come to us it works 2 ways, actually. We do one-off bespoke pieces in-house from start to finish, but only one-offs because it's such a long-winded process to make a case. And then all the other cases we make in small batches of 20 at a time by a local engineering company in Norwich, and they come to us, they're raw, and I mean raw, straight off the machine. So you can imagine the finishing involved on each case. the graining, it's called linishing, on the edges, the frosting, the polishing to get it up to a decent standard. It's 3 to 4 hours work on a case, on every single case.
Wow. Well, it certainly looks like it's worth it. Now, tell me about the movement in the S5 a little bit, if you don't mind, because you mentioned it was a different caliber.
Yeah, so the movement, again, my partner, Simon, designed it in collaboration with Andreas. Obviously, Andreas is our man in the background who helps us out. And we wanted a typically British movement. So we had a few issues with that movement, actually. We were prototyping for about 18 months in total. It was a bit of a nightmare getting it to run properly. Anyone will tell you who's ever done anything like that. It's getting the escapement to work correctly and the gear train to run and the timing's right. We put a render up on, it's a bit of a story involved with the S5. Again, we did the same again. We put a render up of the watch a couple of years back on Instagram to say we were doing a 39mm watch, and it was the highest ranked post ever. Literally, we didn't think anything of it. We just said 39mm watch coming soon, S5, prototyping, and literally it went absolutely crazy. Email going mad, website traffic. We sold out again, Rob, before we'd even launched or put a render. We didn't even have a render of the watch when we first announced it, believe it or not. Just like, if I remember rightly, I remember how we did it, actually. It was a 3D printed case, the orange plastic.
Mental.
We put an image out on Instagram. It went crazy. So Asian clients contacted us from like Singapore and Hong Kong and whatnot, all saying, look, we want to buy this watch. And I was saying, you can't buy it. It doesn't exist. But no, we want to put a name down. We know it's going to sell out. So we had a list straight away. We had to rush to get some kind of renders together, which is unusual for us because we don't normally work with renders. We put the renders out, and then literally, and we were thinking, oh no, I hope these clients want it because they've already said they want to buy the watch, and a bit stressful situation. And we showed them the designs for the S5, and literally all of them put the money down, and it kind of enabled us to finish the movement. And then we anticipated a delivery of time of about a year, but it turned into 18 months, up to 2 years, believe it or not. Well, every single client's been patient because they knew it was kind of built and designed from the ground up. And that's the thing. We make a lot of the parts in house. We get some of the parts off Andreas. We have to try and keep the price down. We just can't do a total in-house movement, Rob. It's impossible to do it. But it's built from the ground up and designed from the ground up, and that's the thing. It's a decent movement, but there's a lot of teething problems with these things in the background. It's like people don't understand what goes on, and you think if you're not a watchmaker, people think you just put a watch movement together and it kind of runs, but there's a lot of fettling to do.
Fettling is the word, yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. I was looking for the word. I think I've nailed it with that one.
Absolutely smashed it out of the park, mate. That's the best way to describe everything we do.
Well, Rob, the point is, even when you're setting jewels and putting jewels in, and you get them slightly out of alignment, and it affects the whole running of the watch and the friction and whatnot. you know it, and people take that for granted, and they don't realise, but it all matters, and it all affects the timing, it all affects the amplitude on the watch. I mean, I'm talking like I'm a watchmaker, but I've just learned a hell of a lot from all the issues that we've had over the years and talking to my watchmakers. But honestly, it's a long-winded process when you do anything like that. But, we're pleased with the end result. I love the way the S5 looks, especially with the textured movement. I think it looks stunning. And again, it's got our DNA in it, and it's unique. You won't find another movement that looks the same as that at all. It's totally unique.
It's absolutely smashing. So let's say I wanted to buy one of those today, and I had cash in my hand, and I had a WhatsApp desktop installed and ready to go. What do I do? How long does it take me?
Most people kind of contact us first. We very rarely sell watches, but literally nobody just goes on the website and orders a watch. They normally chat with us via WhatsApp because of the WhatsApp icon on the website first. We normally go back and forth for a few days, sometimes a few weeks. Discussing things. When they're happy, then they pull the trigger and they buy on the website, and then it's 65% deposit, and then they pay the balance when the watch is built. And it's just really on how long the client wants to wait. S5's quite a waiting list on an S5, S4 and S6. We've managed to get that down considerably now, just because we've literally honed our skills at building those watches, and we're pretty fast at making the dials and stuff at the moment. The one watch that's worth discussing, like to say, that we've got in the background at the moment is the Deadbeat Seconds, which is going to be a big thing for us, I think. That's going to be a beauty, Rob. The S6 movement is already nice. there's a lot of extra stuff that now goes on the back of the movement to run the deadbeat. And I think, that's what we're kind of concentrating on at the moment. And we've got other things in the background as well, like the new regulator Mark II, which is a pretty unusual looking watch. And it's really cool. And again, similar situation with that. We put an image up on the Instagram, and the story. We sold the first batch straight away. Crazy. Absolutely. I mean, Rob, it's a crazy situation for us. We've never been in a situation like this apart from the last year or two. And we're quite humbled by it, realistically. Honestly, you'd think it's a major thing for any brand to sell watches like that. But for us, it's quite humbling that people put their trust in us and buy watches without even seeing the finished article. And honestly, after all the hard work that we've put into this brand over the years, it brings a smile to our faces, and it makes us feel proud, really proud, to be honest.
I mean, it really should, because you've done the really hard bit. Now, of course, there are challenges ahead and how to grow and continue to develop the brand and spread the message and whatnot. And also, how to reduce stress on yourself and all the rest of the team and the watchmakers especially. But you've really nailed it. Like, you've absolutely smashed the early phase of brand development, and it took time, as it would normally. But now you've seen the explosion of interest and you're reaping the benefits like never before. So kudos to you. Did you think that when the pandemic restrictions were lifted that you would see a drop-off in sales? Because, of course, that was the era in which independent watchmaking really exploded.
I did, to be honest. And I talked to quite a lot of other brands in the background, because I work as a consultant in the background. And for some brands, everything's carrying on as normal. For others, it's a bit slow. I genuinely did think it would drop off, but you've got to remain relevant and you've got to do interesting stuff. And I think the thing that works for us, Rob, is we put a lot of decent images out on Instagram, and we chat with clients a lot, and we're sharing images, and all the clients then share it with their friends and stuff. And I think, because we're always working on new stuff as well, we have a bit of a strange way of doing things. A lot of brands don't do a launch until the watch is actually ready. We've found over the last couple of years that what works for us is to give people a teaser at first, and maybe put a render out, or maybe show a prototype image of something, like we did with the case of the S5, or like we've done with other watches. We'll put a prototype of the movement or something out there that we're working on. We do that, and so people get a sneak preview months before the launch, as they did with the S6, who were putting images of the dial out being made and whatnot. That kind of works for us. It keeps us relevant, and it keeps us one step ahead, to be honest. It doesn't work for everybody, but it works for us. And because we're always working in the workshop on building things and doing things, we're in a position where we can do that. It's dropped off a touch after lockdown, but no different than it ever was before it started. And that's the thing with us. I just think we've got a lot of interesting stuff on the cards, and like I say, S6 just launched, Regulator Mark IIs we're working on at the moment. Hopefully we'll prototype for 3 to 4 weeks. Then we've got the Deadbeat, and this is all stuff that people are talking about. People are anticipating what's coming next, and whereas a lot of people like to keep it secret, we don't. We like to keep our customers informed. Like I say, it pays dividends for us, Rob, being honest.
Absolutely, that is the name of the game, and a good point on which to wrap up the interview, I think, because honesty is the most important thing to so many new brands in watchmaking. I'll tell you what I'll do, because I'm not going to ask you to send me a press piece of the new Deadbeat, because it just doesn't exist, and I'm sure it won't exist. I'll come over to the UK. I'll come for a pint with you, and you can show it to me when it's ready, when you've got one ready to send to a customer, and I'll do a review of it on the show, because I'm absolutely fascinated to see it in real life. And more power to you for bringing that idea, an ambitious idea, to life. So, to our listeners, if you would like to ask any questions to Dave, I can pose them to him later. I'm sure we'll get him back on the show, because one of the easiest hour interviews of my life, I didn't really have to say anything. I just sat here and listened to you talk. It's great.
I know, I never stop, Rob. That's a problem.
You can come back, that's for sure. Not a problem for me. You can get in touch with me on Instagram at RobNuds. That's ROBNUDDS. My regular co-host is findable at ALONBENJOSEPH, or you can email us either rob@therealtime.show or alon@therealtime.show. We will be back next week with another Q&A session and another interview with one of watchmaking's leading lights. Until then, stay safe and keep on ticking.